Greetings, Zimbabwe, Africa, and the world. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by HSTV. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today, I'm in conversation with Dr. Matifadza Nyazema, the owner and director of Mbano Manor Hotel in Victoria Falls. Enjoy this truly inspirational conversation. Dr. Matifadza Nyazema. From now on, I'm going to call you Mati because that's what you want to be called. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor.
Thank you so much.
So, congratulations. Your 4-year dream, Mbano Manor Hotels, is now a hotel, rather a tourism destination in Zimbabwe, in Victoria Falls.
Yes.
How does it feel?
It feels fantastic, I must tell you. It was, as you know, it was a brutal journey. I have explained that to you over the past few years. And to actually see the reality coming through and to actually walk and actually see guests coming through, guests making bookings. Then the first few years or first few months stressing to say, there's somebody going to call me at midnight to say something is not working. But actually to see everything is working and it's actually growing as a business. So it's really a fantastic feeling. It's really a fantastic feeling.
What you say, it was brutal. You know, as I was reading, your website, I almost fell over my chair because at some point you say construction. I'll tell the story another time. I hope we get to talk about you know, the ups and downs of trying to put up a hotel, a beautiful hotel, by the way.
Thank you.
That you've put up there. Reading through your bio, I just got the sense that life has been conspiring to get you here. You know why I say that? You start off at ZBC as a news editor.
Yes.
You do some PR with the Zimbabwe Tourist Development Corporation.
Yes.
You do hotel management. You then do a PhD. Is that the sense that you get? Has this been deliberate, or life has happened to get you ready for this moment?
Life has happened, but what I find is that most of the aspects of my life were leading to this point. So even when people say to me, oh, how did you dream this up? I didn't realize 20 years ago I was dreaming on that, or 15 years ago, or 5 years ago. So I've found literally almost all of my career has led to what Mbano is today. So it's not just, something that I dreamt 5 years ago, or 4 years ago, and it came to be. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I mean, like you said, I started off my very first, in fact, I was actually thinking last night, preparing for this interview, my journey didn't even start with ZBC. My journey started when, literally from childhood, if you wish, because I was born on my grandfather's farm in Nyazema, but my parents at the time lived in Kadoma, in Rimuka Township. Typical family. My father is a teacher, my mom is a nurse. Very soon after, we moved to Harare. So my early childhood is basically primary school at Chipembere High School in Highfield, and then we moved to Harare, Mbare, where my father was actually headmaster of Gunyai Primary School. And from that early childhood, one of the things that comes to me a lot is I realized, looking back, that I had a competitive advantage in terms of I had access to a library all by myself through my father's school. And I used to love reading. And looking back at even what I do today, some of it's that aspect of, for me, one of the underlying themes in my life has been English and reading. And that's why I think I became a journalist. That's why I went into research. Yes, and that all comes back from, my goodness, I had a whole library at Gunyai Primary School for years of my life. Secondary school, I went to St. Dominic's, Shishawasha. And then St. Ignatius College, obviously very good schools as well, where it was a good grounding in terms of doing the right thing, being a good Catholic girl. I come from a very strong Catholic family. And then eventually then going to university. I had dreams of becoming a lawyer. I didn't quite make it, so I know everyone wanted to be a lawyer. So I did a Bachelor of Administration in Political Science at UZ, good fun times at UZ. And then from there, I think I always say we were the generation where we were very lucky because we straddled independence. So we literally had jobs falling at our feet. I mean, the way I went into journalism was because I was walking one day in the corridor, saw a list at the Department of Political Science that said, those who want to go to Ministry of Information, please put your names down. And I just said to my friend, let's just put our names down, because we knew there's foreign affairs, there's another. That date happened to be information. That's how my career was chosen. Yeah. I put my name down. A few weeks later, I got a call to say come for an interview, and just by chance there were scholarships available, and I ended up with a scholarship, a Danita scholarship, going to Nairobi to study journalism.
Wow.
That's so there was a little bit of luck involved in that.
Our generation was blessed.
We were blessed. We were blessed. We were blessed in that respect. So I did my journalism. Used to fly back home because my scholarship was actually quite generous. I actually could afford to fly back.
Wow.
So first holiday worked with the Herald, second holiday worked with ZBC, and between the two I was offered a job, and then I decided ZBC sounded nice, and that's how my first job was ZBC.
And I just want to zero in on, the blessing that your father was, clearly that library. What else did your father impart to you, and your mom, obviously? What did they impart on you?
I think my parents were, your typical African family, where they were the nucleus of a very big extended family. And to some extent, probably one or two of the most successful in their respective families. So just an interesting statistic is that I've got 56 first cousins. Wow. I know, I counted. I actually wrote a little story about it one day, about growing up with 56 first cousins. And all of those cousins or their parents at one time or other came to live in our house, because we were the city, the Harare city people. But what I remember of that is everyone was welcome. And I'm just talking immediate family. Imagine beyond that, we had an extended family. I could have 500 people around me, and they're
56 times 10.
And they're all immediate family, because I'm not talking second cousins and third cousins and whatever. And I think the one thing my parents gave to us was everyone was welcome. Wow. I don't remember anyone ever being sent away. And we lived in Bare, which was very close to Mbare Musika. So all you needed to do coming from wherever you came from was to say, you get to Mbare Musika, you say, where is Gwinyai School? Or where is Headmaster Kanza's house? And so my sisters and I, as we were growing older towards teenage, we were becoming naughty. So we used to say, ours is the waiting room, because people would come by bus to Mbare, just say, okay, I'll spend the night. Then they come to our house. And by those standards, we actually had a fairly decent, we had a nice house, 3-bedroom, we had a big yard, vegetables. We were never hungry. So I think then people would say, this looks nice. So instead of one night, they'd end up staying a few nights.
And as kids, I'm sure you're wondering, when are they going away?
Yeah. And I think the one thing, just as an anecdote, my older sister one time actually revolted and said to my parents, we are not coming out of our beds anymore, because we were always being told sleep on the floor. Because,
I can identify with that.
But it was a rich upbringing in terms of family, and that's what that was the point I wanted to make. My father was actually very strict, because also same thing, he was the patriarch of a very big extended family. So in my family, my dear, we did not have lipstick. We did not have trousers. We're the typical, you are a black girl, look after yourself well, you do not...
How is that impacted on you in terms of your worldview right now?
I think sometimes I am fairly strict with my children.
Conservative?
Yeah, I would like to say probably am. I think, but more the way I brought up my children. Because I remember saying to my kids, I will bring you up the way I was brought up. And my parents, like I said, were fairly strict. And I remember when there was an era of, take, what is this, sleepover at somebody's. My kids never slept. I said no. I never saw that in my own home, and I'm not doing it there. So there was also a very strong ethos of education. No, in my family, it was all about education.
Faith?
Like I said, we come from a Catholic family, so it was very strong as well. We went to church every Sunday, and we used to walk. My father was very active in church as well. We had to go to boarding school at a Catholic school, so there was, and I think I guess there is a bit of an element of the Catholic convent school thing. It sort of rubs over. You don't realize it was German nuns, very strong, very strict German nuns that we had. So. Also, I find from there, just not for me, but for my peers in class, that almost all of us made something with our lives because we had strong.
Tell me, interesting. Tell me, when as you discussing the Rukanza home, that's it. That's
that's the name.
I get a sense this sounds like a free hotel. Where people used to come in and change. But anyway, we'll park that idea there.
Okay.
When did the idea of owning a hotel, of building a hotel from scratch, when did that idea begin to
come through? Okay,
yes.
Maybe it's not so much the idea of the hotel, but the idea of Victoria Falls.
Really?
Because when I was about 7 or 8 years old, my father took us to Victoria Falls. He took his school, his what do you call it? His school, yes.
Yeah.
So we went by train. I was very young, but I remember it quite well. It was me and my older sister. We joined the
7 years old.
Yes. So we went by train to Bulawayo, slept at Zilikazi Primary, and then another train to Victoria Falls and slept at Chinotimba Primary School. And I've actually got pictures of that. In fact, if you go on my website, you'll see that. And I think that was a lasting memory for us of going out there and seeing the world. So growing up, it was always, I know Victoria Falls, I've been there type of thing. So I think there was almost a connection with Vic Falls. And perhaps if I can also maybe share another anecdote. I remember when I was now working, I think in South Africa, and I came once on business to Vic Falls. I was doing a presentation. And for some reason, I ended up at one of the corners of the valley at Vic Falls all by myself. And I looked around and there was nobody else. And instead of being scared, funny enough, I was actually very calm. And I remember thinking, sounds a bit morbid, but I actually said, the day I die, I want my ashes over the Victoria Falls. And this was before the hotel thing. But to go back to your question, I think I always saw myself as a corporate person, and I was lucky that I worked for big corporate organizations, British Airways, Zimbabwe Sun, Cresta Hospitality, and then more latterly Southern Sun, Tsoko Sun in South Africa. But the last 15 years of Tsoko Sun, because of my seniority, I sat on Exco, right? And so I was then eventually running the Sandton Convention Center in Johannesburg. So we would always start with the convention center, get it out of the way, and then do the hotels thing, because that took long. I'd tell us what's happening at the hotels. And I realized later I actually got 15 years of how to build a hotel. Free education. Because I would have finished my brief, so I'm now sitting there for the next 3 hours just watching the guys talking, and they're saying, okay, we're trying to go into Nigeria, we're trying to go into Rwanda, or we've been to Mozambique. This is the business model that we've used in starting the hotel. You know, the law in that country does not allow you to do X, Y, to own the land, or you just can be manager, or it allows you to co-own with somebody, or we've gone into Kenya, this is the law. So, you know, subconsciously I knew how to build a hotel.
Wow.
So by the time, I think the actual, probably around 2008, thereabouts, I remember saying, I'd love to own something in Vic Falls. And actually came and looked, and at that time had the usual idea, I think, which most people associate of just having a small little, something that already exists, built, sort of like on 2,000 square meters, a nice little B&B type of thing. And I actually looked at it, for whatever reason, I decided not to buy at the time. But I think the seed was planted. Yes. And maybe just as another thing as well is, this was not my first business venture. I didn't even put it on my CV.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually own a creche in Glenview.
Wow. That's the education part of
That's the education part of it, yes.
Yeah.
So in the early 90s, and because I remember somebody once said to me when I was looking for my copy title, they said, what were you doing in early 90s looking for land to build a creche in Glenview? But I did. I was just curious about the new suburbs.
So you built the creche
yes,
from
I
scratch.
actually applied to Harare City Council, it took 18 months, got allocated land to build a creche, did the whole due diligence, built it up. And I literally was a full nursery school, not just your usual little, it's actually a little mini school. And when my father was already retired, he's the one who was running it for me.
Wow.
So I'd already had a double into business and into building. That's the other thing. Although I built Mbano, I realized I've done probably 4 or 5 projects prior to this of construction. So much as I said construction, I already had an idea.
Interesting because, you know, they say that overnight success takes decades.
Okay.
And I think what you're outlining right now is exactly that. Talk to us now about the challenges of building Manor Hotel in Victoria Falls.
My goodness.
The feasibility study, looking for the land, buying the land. In a nutshell, what does that look like?
My goodness. So the first, probably the easiest, was identifying the land. And this was in 2016, because I'd actually said to my husband, we're talking about retirement. And we're saying, okay, he's a bit older than me. And we're saying, okay, what are we going to do, etc. And I said, well, I've always liked the idea of owning a hotel in Victoria Falls. Now I'm verbalizing it. And he said to me, so why don't you go for it? So literally within the next month, I took a flight, went to Vic Falls, just feasibility. The one thing which again I didn't mention is networking. Although I'd left the country by then, I left the country in probably initially 95, came back briefly 99, 2000, then went again out. But I never lost my connections with the tourism industry. So when I came to Victoria Falls to do a feasibility, I actually phoned a lot of my friends first, and I said, what should I do? I had a list of names. Cut a long story short, within 3 days of arriving, I found out, well, don't go for an existing piece of land, existing piece of building. There's land available.
Okay.
I was introduced to the right person. I went on the site, which is now Mbano Manor Hotel, and the rest is history. So the actual identifying of land, and then obviously paying for it, through our own personal funds, tough but doable.
Sure.
Then you start saying, okay, now I want to start looking for the
money.
money.
Now I've got the land.
Now I've got the land. I brought in a partner of mine that I'd worked with in South Africa, a former colleague who I knew had built hotels across Africa, and I said, help me. We do the concept, and we finally come up with, let's do high-end, less than 20 rooms, 18 suites, 19 suites max. So we've got the nice concept together. Now you're looking for the money. That was very interesting. Because the first thing, I think I was naive, because I thought, oh, I've got all these connections. I've worked in South Africa for 16 years. I know I can open a lot of doors, which I could. But I think the reality, to be honest, is I underestimated the challenge of selling Zimbabwe.
Talk to me about that. What was the challenge? What was the challenge?
I think, because like I said, I'd been outside, so I thought, there's challenges, but you sort of think, I can do it. They can see my history, etc. So opening the door to speak to a serious person was easy, because I've got this history of, I've worked for these big organizations. Then I sit there and I'm saying,
Martha Mati is a brand. She can open doors, but she's trying to set a hotel in Victoria Falls.
And I'm thinking Victoria Falls is a premier destination, a World Heritage Site. I can do that. So the combination should be wonderful.
Easy.
Easy. And I've written my nice little, remember I'm a journalist, I've written a nice 10-page summary. So you now go to whoever it is, you talk, there's interest. Wow, Mati, sounds interesting. I know you can do it. And people used to say that, I know you can do it. I don't have absolute faith. Victoria Falls is a wonderful place. Let me look at it. I'll come back to you. Talk to my financial guy. We talk numbers. By then, I was also having support from 1 or 2 financial people to put the proper numbers, return on investments. You wait a week, you wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You're polite. Then you go back. Anything going? Okay, no, still looking at it. Usually, the average turnaround was about 6 to 8 weeks, and then. Finally, the person says, you know what, not now for Zimbabwe.
Wow. Literally.
And I think I got that probably easily 10 times. I flew into Cape Town. Someone would say, okay, no, go and see XYZ. This person grew up in Zim, so they understand. And they'll push
Mati,
you, and
what goes through your mind, Mati? You've just flown to Cape Town, where the money is. Yeah. The door has closed, and not now for Zimbabwe, Mati.
Yeah,
but you still have your dream. What does that do to you?
I think my spirit was, because I was convinced it would work. So I could see where it was coming from, but I was convinced. This is 2016, early 2017. I could see, I never gave up. It was just tough because you had flown in. Remember, I'm using my personal funds. So I fly in, I fly out. I literally, at any one time, I think on average, I had about 5 potential investors I'm trying to chase. So somewhere along the line, by mid-17, the reality is coming to dawn to say, you're not going to raise this money outside the country.
Ouch.
Not now, Zimbabwe. So then I start talking now internally, but I've been out of the country almost 15 years. I've lost my contacts. And again, I always used to say, but where are all my cousins? Because there's no one in their bank that
56
I know.
of them.
All my 56 and their friends and their relatives. So then I start now trying to open doors in Zim. And that was more difficult because seriously, I was more comfortable outside raising funds because I knew people. Here, some of the banks have even changed names. So I'm told, go to such and such a bank. That's the one that used to be XYZ. I'm trying to open doors. I don't know anybody, or somebody refers me to somebody. I get an audience. Yeah, that was tough. Like I said, once I wrote it somewhere, I actually went to every single bank in Zimbabwe.
So it was tough outside, not Zimbabwe,
not Zimbabwe, not now.
Internally, what are they saying? What are they telling you?
I think it was more, in fact, the worst thing with Zim, the experience I had, was they did not say no. They kept you hanging.
The banks never said no.
It was almost like too polite. Polite to the extent of being inefficient. To the extent that once I'd gotten a bit of a rhythm going, I'd actually say, I'm here to present. Guys, if the answer is no,
let me know.
Let me know so I can move on. Don't keep me hanging, because one of the things was...
Don't waste my time.
Because then I would have this meeting, and I'd made 1 or 2 mistakes. So for instance, one of them, someone told me later, I used to go on my own. Because in South Africa, my brand was good enough for me to go to a meeting alone, because I'm the one who's selling the product. I've got the experience, I've got everything. Apparently here I was supposed to go with 3 people to make it look presentable or whatever it is. So later someone said to me, Doc, one of your problems was you always came to meetings alone. I said, but I was the one who was selling the idea. I knew exactly what I wanted. But it's an experience. Wow. Maybe later in life I should have brought my people along. I didn't say I'm doing all the financials myself, but it was expensive. That's why I turned up. But anyway, one of the things was they didn't say no immediately. And depending on who it is, and it happened at least 3 times, I would say. So there's big falls, right? So now I understand some of what would happen sometimes is you present, they come 5 or 10, 8 of them in a meeting. I present, I'm saying this is a high-end product. I'm going to be selling at $1,000 full board. I'm going to be doing X, Y, Z. The minute I left, some of them just didn't believe in the concept at all. They actually said, who sells a hotel for $1,000 a night? So they didn't buy into the idea. The others, I think it was probably, who the hell is she? And some apparently would even say, who is her husband? But the other one, which is worse, is where then they drag you along because they want to have a free holiday in Victoria Falls. So they would actually come to Victoria Falls. So they would phone me and say, we're now going to go and view the site. And 3 men would get on a flight, come to Victoria Falls. I fly in from wherever I am and join them. So it's now looking warm because we are now in Vic Falls. Whereas apparently these guys just want a free trip to Victoria Falls for one night, all expenses paid by their bank, but they have no intention of signing off my project.
Wow. Wow. But Mati, you kept going.
I kept going.
And I want to know what kept you going. When outside they're saying not now Zimbabwe, when internally you're having all these time wasters and stuff, what kept you going?
I think it's probably just my character, to be honest.
Okay.
I've always been one of those people who don't give up easily. And even maybe just to throw back on my background as we were talking earlier, throughout my journey, I've never been, I actually call myself almost like I'm a number 2 person.
You're a number 2 person?
Yeah, I've been number 1 sometimes, but I'm generally a number 2 person. So when I did my A-levels, what I omitted to say is that I actually failed my A-levels. I passed 1 and I needed 2 to go to university. So I actually worked for a year at the Ministry of Education. I was the first Black African in the Ministry of European, Asian and Colored Education. And we were the ones who
we did have those departments.
Yes, who merged the 2 together.
Yeah.
But looking back, I think it's what these young people today call the gap year. So I worked for a year and studied and passed and went back to university. But throughout university, then every holiday I used to work. So already by the time I finished university, going into the workplace, I already had 4 years experience in that. Yeah. So that was one, again, advantage. When I'll give you 2 other examples. Yeah. When I was applying for my master's degree, this late 80s, I was at the ZTDC, and I applied British Council to do a scholarship, get a scholarship to go to UK. I did not get it. I was a reserve, number 2. They said to me, if somebody drops out from another, even another country, then we'll let you in. For 6 months, I followed up every month. Any dropout, no. Any dropout, no. And sure enough, there was a dropout in September, and I went and ended up going to Surrey to study my master's. British Airways, rolled 3 years on. British Airways, I was working for Zimbabwe Sun at the time. A job application comes in the paper. We're looking for people with these qualifications, and I think I suit this. I applied. They wrote me a letter, and they said, you didn't get the job. And then in the same letter, they said, but also your application was late. And I said, my application was not late. I remember the deadline was on a Tuesday at 12 noon. I walked into British Airways at 11:45 and I handed in my application. So I picked up the phone and I phoned the general manager. And I said, my application was not late.
Resilience.
Yes. And by default, I was now having an interview with the general manager. And so she said, she actually went and checked and came back later and apologized and said, okay, sorry, you didn't get the job, but you were not late. A month later, she phoned me. She said, there's now another job for sales manager Zimbabwe. Would you like to come for an interview?
Wow.
And for me, that defined the rest of my life, that particular job with British Airways. And if I hadn't picked up the phone and said to you, your letter is lying, I did not, So I think those little nuggets in life to say, sometimes don't just accept no. Sometimes accept maybe. And fight for that maybe. And it goes back now to my Mbano journey. So it wasn't just the door is shut, let it go shut for good. Sometimes I would still go back and try, but also as part of the conversations, then I learned that there's something called asset managers who hold funds for pension funds. And I actually went to another uncle, extended family, who gave me a whole lecture on how asset managers work, because I'd already bounced into 1 or 2, go for the ones with such and such in funds. These are the good, apparently there's a whole list of them, and these are the good ones, these are not the struggling ones.
These are Zimbabwean assets.
These are now Zimbabwean assets, yes. So by the time I approached the asset managers, I had a background. I was even told, you actually ask them, what are your funds under, what's it? Funds under management. Or something like that. So I looked intelligent. So it was all part
So
of
you're
the experience.
prepared
I was
to learn,
prepared,
to
yeah. So
learn.
I'd failed with the banks. Then someone along the line said, try asset managers because they've got pension funds. I did that, and then eventually, finally
You
found
did it.
I did it.
Which part of you did this experience test the most? The construction bit, the funding bit, looking for land, dealing with banks. Which part of you did this experience test the most?
Just not giving up, because it was tough. Huh? It was really, really tough. Just not giving up. Not because, you know, also you're running out of funds. You're not sure if you're just, you know, will you ever get the money to do it? Are
Did you
being-
ever feel I should walk away from this idea? I mean, 4 years, Mati, come on.
No, during construction, because we haven't even touched my construction. During construction,
Let's talk about construction.
let's talk
yeah?
about so
Yeah.
now I've got the money. Now we
Yeah.
start construction in January 2018, and already by end March 2018 we've hit a roadblock. Because remember, at the same time, if you look at the political landscape of Zim, things are changing.
Yes.
So the same people who had given me money cautiously now also look at it and say, you know,
This
times
looks good.
this looks good after all. So let's renegotiate. Let's go back to the drawing table and renegotiate. And without going into too much detail, I ended up having the funds frozen for almost 5 months while we renegotiated the deal. The contractor was upset. He walked out. I actually never, that's the first time they're hearing this. I never told them that the contractor walked out because he said, where's my money? I couldn't pay. In fact, my husband had to step in and just pay him something to keep him going while I was renegotiating the deal. It was rough. We finally renegotiated because all the time construction carried on because we were now personally funding it while we were waiting for the pension funds to renegotiate the deal. We finally agreed, we carried on.
So you're renegotiating whilst construction is underway?
Yes.
And you're funding that out of your
I'm
pocket?
funding it out of my pocket so that then I would return the money when I got the other money. We also had, part of the deal was I would raise some of the money here, and I still had hopes to raise money outside South Africa through IDC. And they even came in, they did the whole thing. The deal fell through because the local people were saying we can't do X, Y, Z. Then the political landscape changes, and now they can do X, Y, Z, but I've lost the deal. So believe you me, it was, I mean, so you're trying to build, the rules are changing on you.
As you're building.
As you're building.
The ground is changing under you.
Yes, it's changing under you. Victoria Falls is also getting quite prosperous because remember now this is 2018. I mean, it was one of the best years Victoria Falls had, I think, in like 20 years or something. So what you found as well was that even just your own local suppliers are now asking for the earth. And in those days, I mean, I remember once a carpenter walking away from me. You know, I just said, I'm sorry, I've only got, because all my money was Zimbabwe dollars. I was just, I'm sorry, I've got Zimbabwe dollars. Says, I only take US dollars. I said, come on, Mukoma, can't you take? And he literally turned and walked out of the hotel property. I mean, that's how arrogant, I'm sorry, people were. But we carried on, but to talk about giving up, answering your question. So this is 2018, we're finished. 2019, still trying to go, but now that's when also the economy in terms of devaluation was happening. So I'm getting my good old Zim dollars, but now the Zim dollar was 1 to 1, now 1 to 3. By the time I completed it, the official rate was 1 to 25. Let's not even talk about the unofficial rate. So you can imagine you're getting quotations. People are saying, well, how do I know this money? And I promise them this money is coming in a month's time, in a week's time, and it only comes in a month's time.
The rate has changed.
Rate has changed. It was hard. I must say, for the record, I had my daughter with me, my first daughter. She was my business manager, and she was managing all the financials. And she did an excellent job. It was amazing because she is the one who was just trying to keep up with everything and paying everyone. But at one time around, this is 2019, around April, we'd hit another snag again. Funds have been stopped for whatever reason or suspended or whatever. And my daughter actually came to us, and I think it was Easter of 2019, and said, Mom, when is the time that you can walk away from this project?
The idea had crossed him.
Yeah. She actually asked us that question and said, when is deadline point where
And
you just...
the answer? What answer did you give her?
We just said, we're not giving up.
Giving up.
We're not giving
And
up.
what did she say?
No, she just walked away, but I think we could see she was crying. Because, yeah, I think she could feel the pain. She knew what I was going through. She knew how some of the roughness I was going through. And she literally, she just said, Mom, she was almost saying, please, if you walk away, it's okay with us.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's okay with us if you walk
that's
away.
Painful.
Yeah.
But you kept going. I want you to tell us
Yes.
what made you not walk away. Your daughter is in tears. She wants to walk away. But you and your husband
I
say,
think that's where
"We're gonna
my
continue."
mother's character.
Aha.
Yeah. I think
Unpack that for me.
Yeah.
What is that?
my mom is a strong lady. She's 88 now. She still paints her nails. She's one of the strongest people you've ever seen.
Wow.
She's presided over, she was almost like a senior of 9 brothers and how many extended family. My mom, we always say my mom was born before her time. What she has achieved, she was, like I said, just to give you a very brief history, state register, did your usual sort of Wadilaf type training, nursing. But when she already had 4 kids, she went and did Harare Hospital, SRN, and passed and finished. She went to the UK in the mid-70s to extend her education. Wow. So at one time when I was at
early days.
Yeah. At I was high school, all my clothes came from UK. We had, so, some of the little privileges we had is because our parents broke the barriers, made sacrifices and broke the barriers. Yeah. And my mom was just, she was just a strong lady.
Tell me, Mati, there's going to be young people watching all over the world, in the diaspora and everywhere else. We've got a massive audience out there looking at you now, young ladies looking at you now. What would you say to them? And they want to go into the hotel business and you've scared them with all this stuff. What would you say to them?
Well, I think, you know what? They can do it and they can do better. Because now, knowing what I know, that's where the mistakes come in. What should I have done better? And I could have done it, perhaps, I think it would still have been tough, but perhaps it would have been 80% instead of 100%. What I really believe is people not limiting themselves. Because even after I'd opened, and even now when people come to the hotel, and I must say, for the record, I've had amazing support from Zimbabweans. Literally, at one time my clientele was 99% Zimbabweans. Now I'm getting more internationals, but still 90% is about Zimbabwe. And they ask me, how did you do it? And I tell them, you can do it. What is stopping you? I think, almost going back to the bank experience where someone says to me, what makes you think you can build a 5-star hotel? So they've already judged me. They don't know anything about my history. So I'm saying to those young girls, don't allow someone to judge you. Pursue your dream, but invest in it as well. Invest in it, because I've had people, I do try and counsel people, and they'll say, I've got an idea, and I want to do this. And I actually say to them, go back and do some more homework.
Okay.
Don't let me do all the thinking for you, just because I've done it.
Yeah.
I actually say, go and write 1 page, academic. Go and write 1 page summary. Research of what you're trying to do, then come back. So it's doable. And I think, one thing I would like to say, I think is also, I know it's always easy to say, it's a lady who's done this, and we know black women or black women generally tend to be disadvantaged. But let's not forget the young men, hey?
Yeah.
I've also been quite shocked at some of what I've seen of the young men and the disadvantages that they have. And I actually feel us as mothers, much as we want to bring the girl child up, the girl child up, let's not forget the boy child. And I also want, maybe perhaps slightly controversial, one thing I've also observed more recently, now that I'm calming down, is you've got this layer of young ladies, and when I say young, 30s, even 40s, in Zim, who are trying to break the barriers, who are trying to do things, who've been educated. And unfortunately, I find some of them are actually constrained by their husbands. I've been surprised because I've shared this with some of my peers of my age, and they said they've experienced the same thing, where a typical example, I've got 2 daughters. They got married to Zimbabweans. And the marriage ceremony and the day afters that they went through, I didn't go through that 40 years ago. And we're saying, where is this?
Where is this coming from?
Where is this coming from? Where is this Shona than Shona thing coming from now? From you young men that I sent to South America, Europe, Dubai, Cape Town, New York for university, and you were exposed to all this, but
something's drawing you back.
Why are you now becoming this absolute traditional man? So I worry. I'm not saying I've got all the facts, but I worry to say, you're asking me to say, please sponsor, mentor the girl child. But I'm hoping that in their home,
somebody's mentoring
the boy child and allowing this girl to fly. You understand?
Yes, I understand. Because clearly, your husband that I know very well, Professor Norman Nyazema, from what you're saying, has been absolutely supportive.
Yeah.
The family structure is important for you to succeed. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, so I think that's the point I'm making to say, let's make sure that it's a holistic approach. Yes, I will give me 10 girls, let me mentor them, invite me, I'll give a lecture on what you can do, how you can do it. Simple things like please do your CV properly, please, like up to today, you send me an application letter and you just say,
I know what you're going to say, I delete.
Sometimes there's not even dear something.
Hi, Mati.
Hi. And I'm like,
do you know me from?
I'm not your mom. So you know the story.
I know the story.
But what I always do is I say to them, resubmit.
What do you do before we go? I want us to go into that beautiful hotel, talk about the hotel.
Yes.
What do young men and young women watching us right now who want to be mentored by you, what do they need to do?
Come forward with having done their research.
Yeah. They shouldn't say hi, Mati.
No, they shouldn't say hi, Mati. they say dear Dr. Mati.
Yes.
In fact, they don't even call me by my first name because I go back. I'm like, hey, I'm your mom. It's in South Africa.
Dr. Nyazema.
If it's in South Africa, they can get away with calling me Dr. Mati, but in Zimbabwe, I'm Dr. Nyazema. Yeah. I think just sound serious, even if I can't help you, but I can see the potential. But I think there's this informality coming through your social media, and it's killing people.
I'm with you there 100%. I feel bad when I delete. Sometimes I do send back. I say, are you really serious? Do you want to be held by me when you write as if you're writing a WhatsApp message?
Yes.
But anyway, Mati, you've got a beautiful hotel now.
Thank you.
I can't wait to spend a night in Mbano Manor Hotel. Describe to us the market position, what you're offering, what is its unique selling proposition.
Yes.
Unpack the hotel for us.
So the vision behind Mbano is to say unapologetically 5-star, unapologetically high-end.
Elitist.
I don't think it's
I'm
elitist,
teasing you.
but I think it's almost like one of these, if someone says why, and I would ask why not. Yeah. Because tourism is about experience.
Right.
Tourism is about the other finer side of life. It's about time out. So if you're a CEO, you're a director, you're a whoever, you're a honeymoon couple, you're an anniversary couple celebrating 30 years, or you just want to treat your mom, it's about the finer side of life, the happier side of life. I actually always say, us in tourism, we're actually very happy people. Right. Or we've got a happy disposition. We're not always very happy, but we've got a happy...
Sociable.
We're sociable, we're hospitable, and there's layers of hospitality I fully appreciate. I made the conscious choice to go for the high end for a number of reasons. One, because from research, I identified a gap in the marketplace to say, there's this, there's that, there's that. I think there's a space for this. Number two, I've got the experience. When I worked at the convention center, I used to host heads of states. I used to host opera. I hosted, musicians, you name it. We came across that
Absolutely.
together. So I have the experience. That was the other thing. I know what to do. I know how to host these people. I even used to teach my staff on protocol. So Mbano is about, yes, celebrating the finer things in life and actually giving that experience, but doing it properly and doing it thorough, attention to detail. You actually, as part of the planning, we went through what is the journey of this person as they are coming from the time they enter the gate. It's a 4-acre estate. We didn't take down any trees. I mean, we literally did this geographic survey of every tree in Mbano first. The buildings moved to accommodate the trees. Wow. So once the architect came and said, okay, this and that, as we were there, then we would say, okay, this one is in the way. And we said, no, you move the building, don't move the tree. And in the whole construction, we only took down 2 trees. So it's about nature. So literally, we live in a forest. And for me, even after the first year, it's been amazing.
Which part of Vic Falls is it?
Okay, we are on Old Kazungula Road.
All right, okay.
Which is, Kazungula is the road to Botswana.
Yeah.
So we're sort of behind the suburbs,
okay.
Old Kazungula Road. And if you were to go the other side, we are behind Vic Falls Safari Lodge. So it's a new part of town that a council designated about 15 years ago for expansion. But we're next to the national park. So where Mbano is, there's a site for 10 hotel sites, and after that is national park. So it's amazing, because then you are never going to have too much construction.
And you've got 19 suites,
We've got 19 suites, so 18 are standard. So we try to give the experience of effortless luxury. So you find cement floors, you find brick walls just barely painted, but the finishes are first class. The bathrooms are modern, but all of it is about in space. There's a big celebration of space. So each unit has got 90 square meters, which is quite big by tourism standards, of which 45 square meters is just veranda space. And 45 square meters is internal. So you've got as you enter, you actually see there's a small, what I would call a lounge area with a mini server unit, with your eye level. Then the attention to detail things are like eye level fridge instead of having the fridge having to go down. If you look at our points for plugs, we've got the international, the local, we've got something for the telephone, something, everything we've got. And then you move from there, then you've got the king-size bedroom, or king-size bed with a mosquito net, so you're comfortable. High-level ceilings, so the space issue literally goes through as you see. So we don't have normal ceilings like this. It's actually rafters, so it creates the illusion of space. Then you go to the bathroom through what we call stable doors. So it's those little details that just works on the mind and just says, wow, this is nice.
The brochure looks beautiful.
It does, and the actual looks even better.
So you've got 18 suites. Is it 18 or 19?
It's actually 19 suites. So 18 are the standard suites that I described. The 19th is the presidential forest villa. So that's our masterpiece. I actually deliberately delayed opening it because, with COVID and everything, we were not ready.
But it's open now.
It's going to be open on the 1st of December.
Okay. And what's special about it?
This is, remember I talked about the other suites are the why not?
Yes.
This is because. Seriously, this one is about, living the life. Yes, it's.
And why not?
And why not? So it's in a corner of the estate. It's got, it will come with a 24-hour butler service, your own chef, your own assistant. It's got obviously the main bedroom, but also got 2 lounges, one that can be converted into a sleeper room. So we're saying it's maximum 2 adults, 2 children, a massive bathroom. Everything is his and hers, indoor showers, outdoor showers, dressing room. The works. Just on the veranda, it's got a massive veranda which is on 3 sides and 4 meters deep everywhere. Private plunge pool, the works. So
Wow.
You want to treat yourself, Trevor, you're the right person.
I think I'm coming
You
for
must
that
come there.
one. I'm coming
Right.
for that one.
Thank you.
Yeah. Talk to me now. You've been running for a while.
Yes.
What are the practical challenges that you've experienced? I know you opened 6 weeks.
Oh,
COVID
my
hit you
God.
hard.
Then we had to close.
Yeah. Apart from COVID,
Yeah.
what other challenges have you experienced?
I think it's all underwritten by COVID, to be perfectly honest. Yeah,
yeah.
Because then it's a ripple
Yeah,
effect.
yeah.
Because basically, like I said, you said, we operated 6 weeks, then closed, closed for 4 months, then reopened again, but still under semi-lockdown conditions. Victoria Falls is a tourism destination. So when COVID hit, I mean, people in Harare and Bulawayo don't know what it looks like. Literally,
Shut down.
There was total shutdown.
Yeah.
And some people lost their jobs easily. I'm not sure of the statistics, 25, 30%, and they've never come back to Vic Falls. Businesses are operating. Some lucky ones, the smaller ones, have managed to come back. I think maybe you hear some people talking 50% occupancy. I think on average, most people are between 25 and 40% occupancy.
Do you think COVID has taught the tourism industry any enduring lessons at all?
Sure. You know what? Tourism has already been through a few rough rides.
Yeah.
You remember the SARS?
Yeah.
Because it's a very sensitive industry. Because remember, it's about hotels, it's about travel, it's about personal safety, health, comfort, and just relaxing. What it has taught, I guess, oh my goodness, I guess it's the resilience issue. Because what happened actually is tourism probably adapted the quickest, because so when people were told go and get vaccinated, all of Vic Falls went, because it's your survival. But yeah, it's been tough. So it's really been tough. It's just market access. So at the moment we're relying on domestic market. We need the corporates, we need the locals to support us, we need the diaspora to support us, because they have got reason to be in Zim.
Is there anything we can do to get the domestic market activated to support tourism? Or you happy with where we are?
Please tell your friends and your... Is anyone listening? I think what I've found is, as in any society, you've got different layers of people. There's some who just say, I want to go on holiday. What are the rules? Let me go. There are others who are more cautious. And I've found, I think, perhaps in Zim, a higher level of cautiousness than I would have found in South Africa or somewhere like that. I mean, we've had questions, can I get on a domestic flight? Do I need a COVID certificate to get on a domestic flight? For someone in tourism to be shocking, but now I'm beginning to understand some of the fine nuances of Zim and realize, actually, maybe that question needs to be answered.
It's important.
Yeah. When the rules change, and I think also because the rules have changed so much, can I travel by road? Actually, tourism has never been stopped. You could travel by road. Okay. But even when it opened up, people were cautious. So to answer your question, I think we do need the local support. As Mbano, obviously, I like to say, look, we're celebrating Black excellence. We're celebrating what we can do. And I really would hope the executives and the CEOs would support us more and do their strategies at Mbano, come with their families on holiday. Because I think also that whole culture of taking children to be exposed to the other side of life.
It's important.
It's important. And I've seen it with my children. They can, my son at 5 years was flying unaccompanied.
It opens them a different world
I find,
together.
that's why I was saying that when I look at some of the young men and women, I feel the exposure is lacking. And if you can, and if you've got the resources to expose your family, why aren't you doing that?
And Victoria Falls is exposure itself.
Yeah.
One of my regrets is we meant for a long time, you keep on postponing, to take my parents to Victoria Falls. They passed on without going to Victoria Falls. That hurts me.
Yeah.
That hurts me.
And people do bring their parents.
Yeah.
And I've been very pleasantly. It's one little aspect, not a lot, but the few who've brought their parents, it's amazing.
It's a beautiful
it's amazing.
place.
Yeah.
Mati, you've been very successful. I mean, your story right now, I have no doubt is going to inspire quite a lot of people. But I think that we learn a lot of lessons from people's failures.
Yes.
And I want you to be vulnerable right now. Have you ever failed? And if you have failed, what lessons has failure taught you?
and I've probably touched on some of it. For me, it's looking back and saying I could have done this differently, better. And so maybe coming back to Zim after 16 years, after 20 years, I failed to take the time to understand the market properly. And as a result, maybe that's why I met the resistance. So, because sometimes it's about playing people's game, not playing your game. So when I was saying I was going to meetings alone, if I'd understood that the dynamics in this place mean bring one or two other people, I would have done that. But perhaps I was a bit arrogant and thought, oh, but I walk in Sandton and I walk in Cape Town alone, and people look.
It's not an issue.
It's not an issue. So I think it's about being humble enough, humility, being humble enough to understand who are you dealing with, what makes their world. And it doesn't mean their world is any different from your world, but understand the dynamics of their world. When I left, I was MD of Cresta Hospitality. I only stayed for 22 months.
That's the shortest stint, eh?
Yes. And when I walked away, because I couldn't handle the pressure. At the time, there was a lot of pressure, not so much from Zim actually, but more from the Botswana operations. I mean, we would go for board meetings, because I was MD Botswana as well, and they would openly say, don't take this personally, we don't want you.
Wow.
We want a Botswana appointed, yes.
Wow.
I'm fascinated to see they're still, nothing is solved, but anyway.
That must have been painful.
Yeah, because I was still quite young, and so I felt I was failing because, why do people not like me? Why? And maybe I couldn't handle the pressure. And when I finally resigned to go back to South Africa, I remember talking to a Ghanaian who was friends with the shareholders, and he had come, I think, on a visit. And I said to him, I feel like a failure that I've only stayed 20 months because, that's a short stint. You can, and he laughed at me and he said, you call this failure. You don't know what failure looks like. So I think it's about just being humble and saying what went wrong. Well, sorry, the one thing he taught me was your failure was you failed to manage upwards enough. You should have taken the time, those people who didn't like you, to make you like you on a professional level. So I think those are some of the, I guess what one can call it failure. I've been lucky, I must say, to be honest. I haven't had like a real dramatic something happen, but I have walked away sometimes feeling, couldn't I have done it differently?
Do you have any leadership heroes at all?
Off the cuff,
the
one that comes to mind is I like Oprah. I admire her.
Right.
I admire what she says. I wish I had the confidence that she's had for 20 years, because I still feel my confidence, I still worry about, am I dressed well? Am I this and that? And she just looks like she just does it effortlessly.
It's interesting that you say that, because for me, I've experienced you quite a number of times. I'm experiencing you right now.
Yes.
I am in no doubt that your confidence levels are at the same level as
probably
Oprah.
A facade. No, that's probably a facade.
Tell me, have you felt that you've been treated in a certain way because you're a woman? These people that say bring somebody else, did you think it was because you're a woman?
I've heard that I probably would have taken a shorter time to raise the money if I was a man. I have no proof, but I've heard that was probably one of the issues, that people take men seriously, and they almost feel comfortable giving money, big monies to a man rather than to a woman. So it may not have been in my face, but there was that prejudice. And I mean, you're talking prejudice in tourism. Let's call it what it is. It's still very much, especially even in South Africa, a white-owned,
a white space.
A white space. So even going into Victoria Falls, believe you me, as early last year, one person called me and said, there's a way we do things in Victoria Falls.
Wow. And what's that way?
No, they didn't explain, but they just told me. And I think if it was probably 20 years ago, I would have been shaking or something. But someone actually asked me that question. To say, have you not seen prejudice? Maybe it's not necessarily racism. I actually, because I've studied affirmative action and everything, and you know, there's strands of, because it can even be black prejudice. It's not just white prejudice. It can be male prejudice. It can be religious prejudice or whatever. But the prejudice in the tourism industry. And I've said, you know, when you reach a certain age, what brand of prejudice have I not come across? What brand of discrimination have I not come across? So to answer your question, I survive because I refuse to make that prejudice become a factor. And I think I can identify it quicker. And maybe for the young people, that's where, you know, they almost feel, oh, but the doors are closed because, you know, and I said, first knock on the door. Don't assume the door is closed just because.
Don't let it define you.
Yes,
Mati, we love books on this show. I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Yes.
And you are a researcher, you are an academic, you are a journalist, you do so many things. Share with us, are there any books that you've read that you want to recommend to our audience? They love book recommendations.
I think the best book I wrote was my thesis.
What was the thesis on, by the way? That's important.
It was actually on affirmative action, which is, I studied Black economic empowerment in the hotel industry in South Africa. And it was really just, very simply put, why aren't we getting more black general managers in the workplace? Why aren't we getting more black corporate executives in the marketplace? And that's really what I studied. And trying to appreciate, you know, the differences between what the law was saying and what was the actual practical issues on the ground. So that's really what it was about. But to answer your question, I think, so to be honest, I've actually been so busy, I haven't had too much time to read books. With my PhD, I read over 300 books, so I was I needed to rest because I did it fairly late. It's only barely 10 years ago. But what stands out even out of that research for me, are two books I read. One was by a guy called Edward Tellers. It called Race in Another America. Because as part of my research, I had to do quite a lot of in-depth research on racism, how it works globally. I was fascinated by South America and what has happened there and how you can have layers of prejudice and etc. So that book, even up to now, I still look at it and I think, wow, you know, because I think it helped me almost come to terms with who I am and what to face in life. So it's Edward Tellers by Race in Another America. Another one is a lady called Dr. Anna Spenceley. It's on responsible tourism. It's called Responsible Tourism. And she did a whole study on Southern Africa. And again, it was one of the key books I just found myself going back to, almost like it becomes almost your Bible to say, what is actually happening in our industry? How small enterprises, the tourism value chain, what can we do to make things better? And we sort of touched on it when you were saying, how is the industry surviving? The tourism value chain has been cut into pieces and some have fallen off in that value chain. And, you know, people are actually regrouping and recreating the value chain, unfortunately dropping out a lot of people along the way. So those were some of the books, but from almost like a social point of view, my last book was Michelle Obama, Becoming. So I do tend to admire black women who've done well, and I read up on them. But because I'm so tired these days, to be perfectly honest, I'm a reader. I read every day of my life. Even now, I just said, if this time I've actually got a magazine in the book, I tend to read more magazines. My son is trying to persuade me, so I must mention it just for the record. There's apparently there are two books called The Stellenbosch Mafia.
Yes.
He said to me, I must read that. Then there's another book by a guy, I think something Knight or something. He's Nike.
Oh, Nike. Yes.
I believe that one.
Phil Knight. Yes. Just do it.
Yes. Apparently that's a very, very good book. So I promise when I get time, I'll buy the book and I'll read it.
Mati, I get the sense that this is not the last time we're going to talk about you starting a new hotel. I think the experience that you got from Victoria Falls
Yes.
tells me that we might hear you going to Dar es Salaam,
Oh my goodness.
going to Cape Town. But allow me to say thank you so much, Mati, for
Thank you for this
creating the time to
opportunity.
actually come down from Johannesburg, spend time with us,
Thank you.
and share your story. Which,
And then off to Vic Falls
off to
tomorrow.
Vic Falls. You have inspired quite a lot of people
Thank you. I hope
through
so.
this conversation.
I
I
hope
have
so.
no doubt
I hope
about
so.
that. So thank
Yeah.
you so much for that. And we wish you nothing but the best
Thank you.
with your journey.
And thank you for sharing this opportunity and sharing a little bit of Mbano Manor Hotel with you.
Fantastic.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Allow me now to turn to our viewers who are in Zimbabwe, on the continent and in the diaspora, who have made this show the success that it is. We are on YouTube 7 a.m. every Monday. And to ensure that you don't miss out on any of these quality shows, I invite you to click on this red button and subscribe. If you do subscribe, you'll get an alert every time we have one of these quality conversations. We've also gone a step further and created podcasts for you. And if you roll under this video, you'll find a link that will take you to the podcast. Thank you for watching. Until next time, cheers to you all.